Considered one of Connecticut's greatest athletes, Bobby Valentine was a baseball, track, and football star at Stanford's Ripperwam High School. A first-round draft choice of the Dodgers, he was well on his way to Major League stardom when injuries derailed his playing career. He found other careers, a successful coach, manager, and businessman. Bobby Valentine joins us in the Sacred Heart University studios for Connecticut Big Shots.
And here he is, Bobby Valentine, Mr. Stanford, Renaissance man.
Wow.
I know you hate it when people say things like this, Bobby, but it's really unbelievable. People know about your baseball career, especially as a manager, but all of the other things that you've done in your life, people know that you're a ballroom dancer.
I don't know if they would know that. But
Talk to me about that.
Another life.
Okay,
you know,
but still a pretty cool thing.
Yeah.
This wasn't just something that you dabbled in. You were pretty serious about it.
Well, my mom was very serious about it. That's for sure. I was a high school kid, and my mom said, "You're not only going to play sports, you have to have some culture. You're going to sing or you're going to dance." And I couldn't sing, so I danced.
You danced.
Yeah,
there you go.
And actually, for any young kids that are out there, it was ballroom dancing. It was a coordinated effort. I learned teamwork. I learned rhythm. I learned how to compete in a one-on-one situation. Bright lights, Waldorf Astoria, Fontainebleau Hotel in Florida. And it was a very helpful thing for my life and my sports career.
King of the Bill DiFormato dance.
Wow, good for you. Noah. You did your homework.
We did our homework, yes. I spoke to the woman who was the queen the year that you were the queen about this. So this, plus, all right, so we've got the ballroom dancing. You still do any of that? You still get out and dance at all?
I dance once in a while. I have a crooked leg, but, at a wedding, I'll be cutting a rug. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. All right. Cooking.
Yeah, I guess cooking. Cooking was a necessity thing. I opened a restaurant because I could no longer play baseball. And I was at a charity event, and a guy was buying some buildings downtown Stanford, and there was this lousy bar that was deterring from his other buildings. And he says, if we bought that, his name was Joe Romano, he said, if we bought that building, we could put your name on it, we'll serve lunches. And I said, what an idea. Had nothing else to do, and it's 36 years later. It's still in business, and I learned to cook. I learned to do the grill because the cook didn't show up. I learned to do a recipe because people wanted other things, and that was fun.
Okay, but it's still fun, and you still take it very seriously because you'll still be in your restaurant, Bobby V's in Stanford.
Yeah, now I only bus tables and pour a beer once in a while. I no longer cook.
But you're in there, we got to go over this story. We're going to get into your baseball stuff.
Whatever.
But inventing the rap.
Wow, creating. I think it's a creation.
Okay, creating the rap.
A show like this came into our establishment, I think it was 1983. And they had their cameras going, and I wasn't there. My manager was working that day. Hey, well, what's going on and what's new? And he went into the kitchen. He said, I'll show you what's new. We created this sandwich that we wrap up. It was called the Club Mex at the time. It was only created out of necessity because the toaster broke. I had to make a club sandwich for the banker who loaned me the money to start the business. I couldn't put it on toast, so I wrapped it in a tortilla shell, cut it into 3 parts, said, tell the banker that this is a club sandwich served Mexican style. And you know what, in 1983, if you just think about it, the reason I had tortilla shells is because we were trying to serve nachos. And I had to import the tortilla shells from Phoenix, Arizona, because no purveyors in the Northeast had tortilla shells. So that's really dating me. But at one time, here in the great state of Connecticut, they didn't have nachos and they didn't have wraps. So anyway, 100 years later, 20 years later, the Wall Street Journal decided to research this idea that my manager had, that it was the first wrap that was created in the restaurant in Stanford. Lo and behold, they couldn't find another menu across the country that had a sandwich that was wrapped prior to 1982. We win.
There you go. all the more reasons to head into Bobby V's. All right, so you dancing, cooking, owning your own restaurant, broadcasting. I always find it interesting when people who were athletes, managers, go into broadcasting because they had sometimes an adversarial relationship at times with the media, and now here they are as members of the media.
Yeah.
How was that for you going into broadcasting?
Well, again, I wasn't playing anymore in 1979, and this little station was opening up in Bristol, Connecticut, and it had some call letters. And I got a phone call. They said, hey, if you're not doing anything, the Maine Black Bears are playing the Yukon Huskies in fall baseball, and Lou Palmer, if you remember the name, needs a partner to do a broadcast in 1980. So ESPN did a baseball doubleheader out of Yukon, out of Stores, where I was an announcer. And so that kind of stayed with me. The next time I was out of a job, no, and then actually I parlayed that into doing work with NBC.
Right, you worked alongside Bob Costas.
Bob Costas, I was his first broadcast partner, as a matter of fact, with NBC. But I also worked with Joe Graggiola and Tony Kubek when they had the game of the week, on Saturday afternoon. So I was just a lucky guy. I got out of managing when I no longer was managing, and then ESPN had another job, and then Baseball Network had a job. So I've been able to get in front of the camera, talk baseball, and it's been a very easy thing for me to do because baseball, rather than dancing or cooking or opening businesses or being an athletic director, baseball is really my real profession.
It was your life for so long, and
Yeah.
I want to get into that. I want to talk about Connecticut and the importance of Connecticut to you, because I remember going to cover events, let's say down at Shea Stadium at the time, and all the media would be surrounding you, and you would see our mic flags, the Connecticut mic flags,
Sure.
and you would make a beeline to us saying, I've got to take care of the Connecticut guys. What is it about Connecticut? I know it's home for you, but it seems to have a greater meaning for you.
Well, it's home and it's family. The family lives in the home, and my friends and my family were all from Connecticut. And I wanted to share my career with them as much as I could. As a player, I would leave tickets. I would have people stay with me in my house. They were in Seattle, my friends, or LA, or a road trip in Chicago. As a manager, I would try to get as many people on the field before a game as possible so they could at least share the experience to an nth degree, because they allowed me into their lives. They followed me in the Stamford Advocate when I was a kid. I got fan letters for years. When I broke my leg, I had support overflowing, and I always wanted to give back.
Everyone knew your home in Stamford by the baseball light fixtures outside the house.
Still own the house.
They're still
Mom
on
and Dad
the
are no longer around, but my brother and I still own the house, and we figured we'd keep it until we're in the ground.
And are those the baseball?
The balls are still there. You bet.
Nice, yeah.
Everyone go by and say, "Oh, that's where Bobby
There's
lives."
Bobby Valentine's house. You held, what was it, an appointed position in Stamford as the director of public safety. A lot of people thought that was kind of a token position, but you took that very seriously.
Well, they thought it was token because I wasn't getting paid. And, the mayor at the time was a friend, Mike Pavia. He had been the director of public safety in a prior job. And he took the line out of the budget. And they didn't have the position. He thought he could do two. He gave me a call one day. He says, I can't do two, but I could teach you to do one. I said, what the heck, I'm not doing anything. And I came out. People thought I took it seriously because I was filmed one day directing traffic during a snowstorm.
So you didn't take it seriously?
I did take it very seriously.
Yeah.
And, where you have the responsibility of the, $200 million budget of the police department, fire department, the EMS, and the Board of Health, there's a lot of seriousness to be taken. So, I was sinking my teeth into that when I got offered the job in Boston. And luckily, there was a neighboring town of New Canaan who had a spectacular public servant running their EMS named Michael Handler, who kind of took the baton. He ran with it, and he's still doing great things in the city of Stamford.
You look at all these things, though, and that's why I opened this by referring to you as a Renaissance man, because there's not a lot of former athletes who have this resume that you've put together.
Yeah.
What's the attitude, even with your job now as athletic director here at Sacred Heart University, and we're in the Sacred Heart University studios here, a fabulous opportunity for students and a great facility here. But I remember when you were offered that position, when they announced it rather, and somebody asked you actually if it was a joke, because it seems so, wow, Bobby Valentine's going to take this position. And again, you've taken this very seriously. You've done great things for the athletic department here at Sacred Heart. Talk a little about that and how you've really managed to diversify your career.
Yeah, no, I guess the whole thing is I never was afraid of a challenge, and I did and have always and still like diversity. I like to be challenged, and when John Patillo gave me a call and said, hey, we have an opening of athletic director, and I said, is that AD? I'm not sure that I could spell AD. And he said, yeah, and he said, you want to give it a shot? And some people thought it was 2 and 3 weeks. Dave Bike, the former AD and great basketball player,
Sure.
baseball player, and famous coach at Sacred Heart University. Our court is named after Dave Bike.
He won a national championship.
He
here,
won a
yeah.
national
Yeah.
championship prior to us going into Division I. He said when I got hired, there was the pool, and the under and over was 6 weeks. And if you had the over, you won.
Yeah.
But most people were betting on the 6 weeks. But, I was lucky enough to get into this situation, hire some wonderful people, inherit some great people. And I've fallen in love with the student body, the faculty, and the great progress that everyone wants to make here on campus.
Well, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to get into Bobby Valentine, the athlete, because there's certainly a lot to get into. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Connecticut Big Shots.